The winter fog hung low over the valley of Ravenmere, swallowing the distant hills and softening the sharp towers of Blackthorn Manor into shadows. Seraphina Vale sat inside the carriage with her hands folded over a leather-bound notebook, watching the grey countryside through the frosted window. The road had turned rough an hour ago, and every uneven stone beneath the wheels reminded her that she was moving farther from everything familiar. Her father sat opposite her, silent except for the occasional clearing of his throat. Rowan Vale had built his wealth through shipping routes, old trade agreements, and careful decisions. He believed in preparation. He believed in reason. He believed that every problem had a practical solution if examined long enough. Marriage, in his opinion, was one of those practical solutions. "You understand why this matters," he said finally, his voice carrying the measured certainty she had heard all her life. "Yes," Seraphina answered. "You may not immediately admire Adrian Ashbourne, but admiration grows. Respect grows. Affection often follows." Seraphina lowered her eyes to the notebook resting in her lap. Perhaps. Or perhaps people mistook endurance for affection because admitting disappointment required more courage. The carriage slowed. Outside, enormous iron gates emerged through the mist. Beyond them stood Blackthorn Manor, older than any estate Seraphina had ever visited. Stone walls climbed into the pale sky, weathered by centuries. Ivy wrapped around parts of the structure like old secrets refusing to disappear. The gates opened. Her father straightened his coat. "This family carries influence beyond titles," he said quietly. "Conduct yourself as you always do." "I intend to." His expression softened for a moment. "I know." That was the thing about her father. He rarely offered praise directly. Yet when he trusted her judgment, she felt it more deeply than compliments. The carriage stopped before the manor. Servants approached immediately. A tall woman descended the entrance steps with effortless composure. Lady Eleanor Ashbourne moved like someone who had spent decades mastering social expectations until they became instinct. Her smile was warm without becoming personal. "Miss Vale," she said. "Welcome to Blackthorn Manor." Introductions followed. Names blurred. Titles blurred. Faces arranged themselves into polite expressions. Only one face remained distinct. He stood several steps behind Lady Eleanor. Tall. Dark coat. Hands clasped behind his back. Watching. Not with curiosity. Not with approval. Simply observing. Lord Selim Ashbourne. The elder son. He inclined his head once when introduced. "Miss Vale." His voice was low and precise. Nothing more. No effort at charm. No practiced warmth. His silence should have seemed cold. Instead, it felt deliberate. As though he spent words carefully and disliked waste. Then his attention shifted elsewhere. The moment ended. Adrian Ashbourne appeared moments later with the energy of someone arriving late to his own obligations. His smile was immediate. Pleasant. Easy. The kind of smile many people trusted without examining. "Miss Vale," Adrian said warmly. "I hope the journey was tolerable." "It was manageable." "Excellent. Then perhaps the manor itself may improve your opinion of this dreadful region." His humor invited agreement. Seraphina offered a small smile. Lady Eleanor looked pleased. Everything proceeded exactly as arranged. That realization settled over Seraphina before evening. This visit had purpose. Everyone understood the purpose. No one intended to speak plainly about it. Dinner took place beneath chandeliers older than kingdoms. Long tables. Silver polished to perfection. Conversations moved carefully between trade, harvests, neighboring territories, and politics. Serafina sat beside Adrian. He was attentive. Mostly. Until someone entered late. A young woman in pale green. Her expression remained composed. Her eyes did not. Elena Whitcomb. Neighboring estate. Family friend. Introductions happened quickly. Yet Serafina noticed something immediately. Adrian changed. Only slightly. The change was small enough most people would miss it. His attention sharpened. His posture shifted. His expression softened in ways it had not while speaking with her. Elena avoided looking directly at him. Which required effort. Interesting. Serafina lowered her gaze to her plate. Patterns appeared everywhere if one watched long enough. Across the table, Selim Ashbourne observed the room in silence. Again. Always watching. Not participating. Hours passed. The dinner concluded without incident. Yet Serafina retired to her chamber carrying a quiet certainty. The arrangement surrounding this visit contained fractures. She simply had not discovered all of them yet. The following morning's established routine. Breakfast. Estate walks. Formal conversations. Tea. Introductions to neighboring families. Adrian remained pleasant. But inconsistency appeared. Sometimes engaged. Sometimes distracted. Sometimes absent entirely. Serafina did not resent him. Resentment required expectation. Instead she observed. The manor library became her refuge. It occupied an entire western wing. 2 floors. Ancient records. Agricultural texts. Maps. Estate accounts. Historical ledgers. Enough information to occupy years. On the 4th morning she discovered records detailing tenant agreements from previous decades. Something seemed unusual. Rent structures changed abruptly 12 years earlier. Certain villages paid significantly more despite poorer harvest conditions. The discrepancies repeated. Serafina copied notes into her notebook. Patterns mattered. Numbers rarely lied. Hours passed unnoticed. Until she sensed another presence. She looked up. Selim Ashbourne stood near the upper shelves holding an old volume. She had not heard him enter. "You study estate accounts for enjoyment?" he asked after several silent minutes. His tone carried no mockery. Only curiosity. "A habit," Serafina replied. "That is unusual." "So I have been informed." A pause followed. Long. Comfortable. Unexpected. Then. "You found inconsistencies," he said. Not a question. Her hand stilled above the notebook. "You noticed?" His gray eyes moved toward the papers. "You write differently when solving something." Silence. Serafina stared at him. No one had ever said something so observant with such simplicity. Most people overlooked details. He collected them. "You read people carefully," she said. Another pause. Then. "Only when necessary." He returned to his book. Conversation ended. Yet the library no longer felt empty. And strangely, it felt safer because of it. Outside, winter winds moved through Blackthorn Manor. Inside, arrangements continued. Expectations continued. Families assumed futures. But somewhere beneath formal dinners, inherited titles, and polite conversation, something had already begun shifting. Neither of them intended it. Neither had named it. Not yet. Winter deepened over Blackthorn Manor. The first snow arrived quietly. Servants woke to white fields and frozen paths stretching beyond the estate boundaries. Smoke rose from chimneys in pale ribbons. The manor seemed older beneath snow, as though centuries had settled visibly across stone walls. Life inside continued according to habit. Breakfast at 8. Estate reports. Afternoon visits. Evening dinners. Routine had a way of making hidden things easier to notice. Serafina noticed many things. She noticed Adrian Ashbourne disappeared every Thursday afternoon. She noticed Elena Wickham visited the manor more frequently despite claiming indifference. She noticed Lady Eleanor observed both of them with increasing concern. And she noticed Lord Selim Ashbourne appeared in the library almost every morning before sunrise. At first she believed coincidence explained it. Then repetition removed coincidence. He had always been there. Reading. Reviewing records. Writing notes. Sitting near the fire in complete silence. The strange thing was not his presence. The strange thing was how natural it began to feel. One morning Serafina arrived carrying estate ledgers under one arm. Snow still clung to her boots. Selim sat near the window reviewing correspondence. He glanced toward the ledgers. "You brought 3 volumes." "Yes." His eyes returned to the papers. That usually means dissatisfaction. Something in her expression changed. He noticed immediately. "Again." "Always. You read people too easily," she said while removing gloves. "No." His answer came quietly. "I pay attention." The difference mattered. She crossed toward the desk nearest the fire. Opened one ledger. Turned several pages. Then stopped. The numbers were wrong again. Tenant payments. Northern villages. Harvest reductions. Inconsistent obligations. The same pattern. Repeated over years. Her brows tightened. "You found something," Selim said without lifting his eyes from his document. "Again." "Not a question." "How do you always know?" His hand paused over the page. Silence stretched. Then. "You become still when thinking." His answer arrived simply. As though observing people carefully required no explanation. Most men of his position noticed beauty. Titles. Social advantages. He noticed silence. Patterns. Changes in breathing. Serafina looked down at the ledger. Unexpected warmth unsettled her. Not romantic warmth. Not yet. Recognition. The dangerous comfort of being understood. She disliked how much she noticed it. 3 weeks passed. The arrangement between her and Adrian remained unofficial but increasingly expected. County families behaved accordingly. Whispers followed. Future assumptions formed. Serafina observed all of it with calm distance. Until the winter banquet. That evening altered everything. The dining hall overflowed with neighboring families. Nobility. Landowners. Military officers. Political allies. Conversation echoed beneath candlelight. Serafina sat beside an empty chair. Adrian had failed to appear. Again. At first no one commented. Then silence acquired meaning. People noticed. People always noticed. Lord Pembroke, seated farther down the table, smiled into his wine. "A merchant's daughter must learn patience," he remarked lightly. "Old families operate differently." The statement drifted across the table wrapped in humor. Its cruelty remained deliberate. Several guests avoided looking directly at Serafina. Others watched carefully. Waiting. Her fingers tightened around the stem of her glass. Not from hurt. From familiarity. People had underestimated her origins all her life. She had learned composure early. Across the room. A quiet sound. Glass touching wood. Small. Precise. The entire table seemed to shift toward it. Selim Ashbourne set down his wine. His grey eyes lifted. Lord Pembroke. His voice remained calm. Nothing raised. Nothing dramatic. The room stilled. That is sufficient. 4 words. No anger. No performance. Only finality. The kind that required obedience. Silence followed instantly. Lord Pembroke looked away first. Conversation resumed moments later. Artificial. Forced. The evening continued. But something had changed. Serafina kept her gaze lowered. Not because she feared attention. Because she suddenly understood something dangerous. Protection mattered. Not grand declarations. Not charm. Not spectacle. The rarest thing was quiet loyalty. The kind offered without expectation of reward. Her chest tightened unexpectedly. She hated uncertainty. And lately, Lord Selim Ashbourne had become uncertainty. Adrian came to find her the next morning. Snow covered the eastern gardens. His expression looked exhausted. He stopped several feet away. "I owe you honesty," he said. Serafina closed her notebook slowly. "Yes." The word surprised him. He frowned. "You already know." Not a question. She considered him. Then answered gently. "I know enough." His shoulders lowered. Relief. Pain. Both. The truth emerged in fragments. He cared for Elena Whitcomb. Had cared for her for years. Family expectations interfered. Duty interfered. Cowardice interfered. His voice cracked once while speaking. Not dramatically. Quietly. The sound of someone exhausted by pretending. When he finished, silence remained. Then Serafina asked. "If expectation vanished entirely, who would you choose?" His answer arrived instantly. "Elena." No hesitation. No confusion. Truth. At last. Serafina looked toward frozen gardens beyond the window. Strangely. She felt relief. Not rejection. Clarification. Like solving an equation incorrectly written from the beginning. "You should tell her," Serafina said. Adrian stared. "You are not angry." Anger. Again people expected anger. "I prefer honesty," she replied softly. "Even late honesty." His eyes closed briefly. When he opened them, something resembling gratitude appeared. "You deserve better than this arrangement." The words escaped before he seemed aware. Serafina almost smiled. No. What she deserved had never concerned arrangements. Only truth. Adrian left shortly afterward. Snow continued falling. The engagement everyone anticipated had begun collapsing before existing. That afternoon Serafina went to the library. Naturally. Where else? The fire burned low. Records surrounded her. Numbers steadied thought. Hours passed unnoticed. Then the door opened. Selim entered carrying correspondence. He stopped after seeing her. His gaze moved once toward her expression. He understood immediately. Again. Without explanation. You know, he said. Not a question. Her fingers tightened around the page. Yes. Silence. Then. And. Another simple question. Not. Are you upset? Not. Do you require comfort? Only. And. As though her thoughts mattered. As though he expected complexity. Serafina stared into the fire. Finally she answered. I think people mistake duty for virtue. His expression shifted almost imperceptibly. A sign of agreement. Then. Yes. One word. Certain. Quiet. True. The fire crackled between them. Outside. Snow-buried roads. Inside. Two people sat in silence. Not empty silence. Not uncomfortable silence. The strange kind that feels complete. And for the first time since arriving at Blackthorn Manor, Serafina wondered whether the story everyone believed she was living had never been hers at all. Snow remained across the valley for another month. Then slowly, almost reluctantly, winter began surrendering. Ice melted along stone paths. The river beyond Blackthorn Manor moved again. Branches once frozen carried the first signs of spring. Everything changed quietly. Not suddenly. The most important things rarely happened suddenly. The expected announcement never came. No engagement between Serafina Vale and Adrian Ashbourne. County families noticed immediately. Questions spread. Speculation followed. People preferred stories with failure. Especially when women stood at the center of them. Lady Eleanor managed conversations with practiced elegance. Yet beneath composure, tension remained. Serafina observed it. She observed everything. And increasingly, someone observed her. The library became habit. Not refuge anymore. Something else. Morning light through high windows. Old records. Fire. Silence. And Lord Selim Ashbourne. Always present. Sometimes reading. Sometimes reviewing estate reports. Sometimes saying nothing for hours. The strange thing was how little silence existed between them now. Not because they spoke more. Because understanding required less explanation. One morning Serafina spread several ledgers across the long table. Ink marks covered pages. Notes filled margins. Selim entered carrying correspondence. His gaze moved toward the papers. You found another inconsistency. Again. Not a question. Her mouth curved slightly. Perhaps the first genuine smile he had seen from her. Yes. He removed gloves slowly. Large? Potentially. He crossed toward the table. Close enough to examine figures. Not close enough to intrude. Always precise. Her finger rested over entries. The western villages. His eyes followed. These agreements changed 7 years ago. Silence. His brows lowered slightly. The smallest indication of concentration. You are correct, he said after several moments. Another pause. Then. This would save nearly 300 sovereigns annually. Serafina looked up. Surprised. You calculated it immediately. His expression remained unchanged. I remember numbers. Simple. As though memory required no effort. Again. That dangerous feeling returned. Recognition. Being understood by someone equally attentive. The fire crackled softly. Outside. Rain replaced snow. Inside. Something shifted. Not romance. Not yet. Something deeper. Trust. The beginning always arrived quietly. Her father arrived in early spring. Rowan Vale entered Blackthorn Manor carrying concern hidden beneath practicality. He embraced his daughter briefly. Then examined her face. "You are well." Not a question. Yes. He studied her longer. Parents noticed changes before others. Always. The cancelled arrangement with Adrian had already reached him through letters. Rumors traveled faster. Truth arrived later. They walked through southern gardens after dinner. The air carried rain. Birdsong returned cautiously. Her father listened while she explained everything. Adrian. Elena. The dissolved expectation. The library. The estate records. Blackthorn Manor. She omitted nothing. When she finished. Silence followed. Then. "You are disappointed." Again. Not a question. Serafina considered carefully. Finally. No. His eyes narrowed slightly. Surprised. What then? Her answer arrived slowly. Clarified. The word settled between them. He understood immediately. Because he had raised her. His expression changed. Not concern. Approval. Small. Hidden. Real. Then. The elder son requested conversation with me. Her steps slowed. Selim. Something moved unexpectedly inside her chest. Not fear. Awareness. Her father noticed. Of course he noticed. He noticed everything important. The meeting occurred privately. She did not hear it. Naturally. Instead. She sat in the library. Again. Rain struck windows softly. A history volume rested open before her. Unread. For once. Her concentration failed. Hours passed. The door opened. Footsteps. Measured. Certain. She looked up. Selim stood near the entrance. No papers. No records. No books. Unusual. His gray eyes held hers briefly. Then. Your father asks excellent questions. His voice remained calm. Always calm. Her pulse shifted anyway. What did he ask? Selim approached slowly. Stopped near the fire. Hands behind his back. He asked whether I understood the difference between admiration and certainty. Silence. The rain continued outside. And, she asked softly. His gaze remained steady. No hesitation. I told him certainty arrived months ago. Her breath caught. Barely. Still. He noticed. He always noticed. The room felt smaller suddenly. The fire warmer. Her hands tightened around a closed book. What made you certain? The question escaped before caution intervened. Long silence followed. Not uncomfortable. Never uncomfortable. Then. The fourth morning. His answer came quietly. When I found you correcting estate records no steward had questioned in years. Another pause. His eyes held hers. You observed everything. Again. Silence. Then. You looked at systems people accepted without thought and asked whether they were fair. His voice lowered slightly. As though fairness mattered more than convenience. The word settled heavily between them. Not performance. Truth. Always truth. Her chest tightened unexpectedly. No one had ever described her so accurately. Not improved. Not softened. Seen. Entirely. And understood. The realization frightened her. Because people rarely receive that kind of understanding. Rarer still. To return it. Selim spoke again. Directly. As always. I told your father I wished to ask for your hand. No elaborate preparation. No dramatic declaration. Simply truth. The way he offered everything important. Her heartbeat stumbled. Outside. Rain struck stone. Inside. The world narrowed. She stared at him. Long enough that another person might have become uncertain. Not him. Never him. He waited. Patient. Certain. Not expecting. Only offering. Finally she asked. You are very sure? Something changed in his expression. Almost invisible. Warmth. I spend long periods uncertain. His answer remained quiet. When certainty arrives, I value it. The honesty of it undid something inside her. Slowly. Without warning. She looked toward rain beyond the windows. Thought about winter. Empty chairs. Expectations. Silences. The library. The man before her. The strange safety she had found beside him. Then. She smiled. Small. Real. Rare. His eyes changed immediately after seeing it. Not surprise. Recognition. As though he understood the importance. I have conditions, she said softly. Again. That nearly invisible warmth. I expected conditions. You say important things once. Yes. You must continue saying them. A pause. Then. Agreed. And estate reforms, she added. The Western villages require correction. For the first time. The smallest shadow of amusement appeared in his expression. Brief. Gone immediately. Yet real. Agreed, he said again. Silence followed. Then. Is that all? Her smile deepened. Barely. No. Another breath. Then. Yes. The answer arrived simply. The way true answers often do. The county talked afterward. Of course. The merchant's daughter. The elder Ashbourne's son. Unexpected. Unusual. Opinions multiplied. They always did. Neither cared greatly. Adrian married Elena before summer ended. The version of happiness visible between them looked honest. Lady Eleanor developed unexpected affection for Rowan Vale. Their conversations about trade agreements became legendary among household staff. Blackthorn Manor changed gradually. Estate policies changed. Tenant agreements changed. Old habits changed. Some things improved because Serafina noticed them. Some improved because Selim listened. Years later. People would remember the marriage differently. They would speak about status. Families. Unexpected alliances. They would misunderstand. Because the truth was simpler. A woman accustomed to observing everything met a man who noticed her first. Two people often mistaken for coldness discovered they had only been waiting for someone precise enough to understand them. And perhaps. That is the rarest form of love. Not loud. Not dramatic. The quiet certainty of finally being seen correctly. The chapel at Blackthorn Manor filled with spring light on their wedding morning. No spectacle. No unnecessary grandeur. Only truth. After the ceremony, while guests celebrated, Serafina found Selim reviewing estate notes she had left beside his place. Her laughter surprised both of them. He looked up. Calm as ever. The western villages, he said. They still require adjustment. She stared at him. Then laughed again. Soft. Certain. His expression changed in that nearly invisible way reserved only for her. Outside. Spring covered the valley. Inside. Two people stood beside one another with the peaceful familiarity of those who had recognized home long before admitting it. And neither intended to lose it again.